Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my budget Dragonic Overlord Cardfight Vanguard deck profile for June 2020. With the release of all the new Dragonic Overlord support we're having in the latest booster set for standard format, I was definitely excited just to work with some of the support we have now for Dragonic Overlord, and I figured why not make a budget version for Dragonic Overlord Kagero that you can use just like I did with the Blaster Blade deck, featuring the two main units used by Kai and Aichi in the anime for standard format. So this deck profile will focus on just the more affordable support for Kagero, being ones that revolve around retiring your opponent's rear guards, and just ones, like I said, because there's a lot of expensive cards right now for Kagero. So if you're looking just to try out the clan as a whole, just to see if it's your playstyle, this is definitely the deck to rely on, because it can definitely introduce you to the main playstyles, which are, restanding your units with Dragonic Overlord and retiring your opponent's rear guard. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the grade 3s, I'm running 4 Dragonic Overlord. We have 2 other, alterations, alternative units for Dragonic Overlord, being the End and the Great right now. But they're both pretty pricey at the moment. With the X coming out soon, we're going to have just some more support for both of those units. But one of the more affordable ones is Dragonic Overlord itself. With this one on Vanguard or Rear, once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets plus 10,000 power until end of turn. And also on Vanguard, once per turn, when an attack hits, counterblast 1 and discard 2 cards from your hand to stand this unit, and it gets drive -1 until end of turn. So you just have that pressure with this unit, being able to even attack a rear guard and still have the restand power for this card. Just discarding 2 cards from your hand to restand it is great pressure against your opponent, making them want to guard this attack. But if they take it, then they risk you getting a critical trigger, giving all effects to your Vanguard, restanding it with the additional power that I can get from the plus 10,000, and then just having that additional power with your force marker that you may have on your Vanguard circle for that additional powered unit. And then if you call this unit to rear guard, you can also have it get the plus 10,000, which is a great power boost as well if you don't have that force marker on that particular circle. I do prefer to use Imaginary Gift Force 1 with this deck. It just has a lot more pressure, in my opinion, for the overall playstyle, being just the restand power of your Dragonic Overlord. For the added backup grade 3, going for more of the budget build, I'm running 4 Wyvern Strike Agaruda. With this one on Vanguard or Rear, counterblast 2, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it. If you retire the rear guard, this unit gets plus 10,000 until end of turn. So along with the fact that if you don't use the retire ability for this card, it still has the Imaginary Gift Force, and it can work on both Vanguard or rear guard if you do decide to use the retire skill. And Dragonic Overlord only needs the 1 counterblast to restand, so you'll be saving some of the other counterblasts for cards like this, but just a good added backup to your Dragonic Overlord for the overall power that it can provide for just the use of Imaginary Gift Force. And if you ride this unit first, then you can just ride Dragonic Overlord afterwards, having more and more soul power. If, let's say, your opponent's going to guard this one attack, or just putting them at more and more damage, can build up the pressure for your Dragonic Overlord attack, and then you can Soul Blast the other grade 3s you've already ridden from your hand the previous turns for that extra soul power, to give your Dragonic Overlord that extra strength it may need to push against your opponents. And that is it for the grade 3s. We'll now move on to the grade 2s. I know we have a lot of expensive ones as well in the form of Berserk Dragon, you name it, but I'm going with the more easy to acquire cards, including 4 Dragon Knight Nahum. When placed on rear guard, counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards in the back row, retire it, and this unit gets plus 5,000 until end of turn. So giving Nahum plus 5,000 power means they can hit a good amount of different units on your opponent's field, even being able to hit 13k Vanguards by itself without having the need for a boost, as long as you go for that retire power. It hits something in the back row, so just remember that as well. But having a 10,000 power base means it's still a pretty good ride target as well to focus on against your opponent, since you can just have that power be the pressure you go for against your opponent with that defense, especially if you're going up against Excel and Protect decks also. So definitely a 4 of for the deck. One of the other ones being Dragonic Burnout, which I'm also running running 4 of. Now this one, if you just want more and more Overlord ride targets, Burnout definitely helps with that. With the rear guard, once per turn, counterblast 1, put a grade 2 or greater card from your drop zone onto the bottom of your deck and choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So just that recycle power alone is definitely useful. You have to put a grade 2 or greater, so you can't put trigger units back onto the bottom of the deck, but you can still recycle. Like I said, anything else that could definitely help for just retiring other cards. It's a once per turn as well, so you don't have to call it out to use its skill. You just have to use, and just keep the Burnout alive on the field, which is why, along with Nahalem, I'm running the 4 of each copy for all of these cards, which then, the counterblast can get heavy. So if you didn't want to run the Wyvern Strike Garuda, you can always try other cards like Cruel Dragon, having more of a rear guard, call advantage with those type of cards. And then if you just want your focus to be Dragonic Overlord on the Vanguard, you always have that option available to you also. And then lastly, to finish off the grade 2s, I'm running 2 Belcosity Dragon. Unlike the previous version in premium format, the standard version of Belcosity has the plus 5,000 power when your opponent's rearguard is retired during your turn. This can work on Vanguard or rearguard, so if you have, Nahalem set up on the rearguard to kill one of your opponent's rearguards that may be in the back row, retiring will give Nahalem the plus 5,000 power, and then Belcosity will also be able to get the plus 5,000 power off of its own skill. So whether it's on the Vanguard itself and you use Nahalem, or it's on the rear guard and you ride Dragonic Overlord, you can then use Nahalem, giving it the additional plus 5, and then you can also attack your opponent's rear guard with Dragonic Overlord, and when it retires that way as well, you'll get the added boost for Belcosity Dragon, since all it says is when your opponent's rear guard is retired during your turn. It doesn't have to be with a card effect or anything like that. It just has to leave the field for you to get that extra power boost. Putting this card at 20,000 power and with an added booster can be that much more powerful. I'm only running 3 of it though. You really want the retire option more. If I was testing it out and running more Belcosity, then I had less and less chance to get actual cards that could retire cards on the field. And if I in turn chose the Cruel Dragon option as the added backup grade 3, then it became that much more difficult as well. One other pressure option if you wanted, it's a little more pricey, but Dragonic Waterfall is always an option as Noel. It's not as expensive as the End or the Great at the moment, but still just another added pressure unit for you to ride over Dragonic Overlord late game with the added guard restriction of that card also. But in the end, it also depends how much you want to spend on each specific deck also. And that is it for the grade 2s. We'll now move on to the grade 1s. I am running 4 Embodiment of Armor Bar. With this deck, I was also getting a feel for a lot of nostalgia, just using a bunch of Kai's main units, including Nahalem, Bar, and Dragonic Overlord. With Embodiment of Armor Bar, 1 place, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rearguards in the same column as this unit, retire it. If you have more rearguards than your opponent, this unit gets plus 5,000. So with Nahalem, you're going to have a 28 column boost with this, being able to hit a back row unit with Nahalem, as long as you know where you're setting up the columns. Bar can kill the other unit with the retire effect that much easier as well. So I just like to run the 4 of it for that option. It's a rear guard only, but still a pretty good ride target since it has the 8k power to use also in the deck. And I am also running 4 Guard Gryphon. You can go with the generic Sentinel that we had from the first set, or even the new one when you ride to discard and draw a card, just to have some more consistency for actually opening up some specific cards you might want for the deck. But whichever one, we're going off of the fact that, the draw trigger Sentinels tend to be a little more pricier for people looking just to build something a little more affordable. So the grade 1 Sentinels work just as well. The only thing you have to remember with these is it does cut back on the actual grade 1s you can call to help boost your other cards, but we still have some pretty good options for those as well in the deck, in the form of Dragonic Gaius, which I'm running 2 of. Just when it boosts a grade 3 or greater, counterblast 1, put this unit into your soul, and the boosted unit gets additional critical plus 1 until end of that battle. So that's great pressure, especially with Dragonic Overlord, to attack your opponent, giving them more incentive to use the Sentinel against the attack. Otherwise, you risk getting another critical, dealing 3 damage to your opponent, and definitely putting a stop to any big plays they may want to do next turn, because then that could be enough damage to finish them off also. For a few other of the 2-ofs, I'm running also 2 Red Dive Gryphon. Once per turn on rear, when your opponent's Guardian is placed during the battle, it boosted to Vanguard. Soul Blast 1, choose one of those other Guardians, retire it until the end of that battle, and then retire this unit at the end of that battle also. So if you use up your Dragonic Gaius plays, you can then call an additional booster, which just needs the Soul Blast, which can easily be used after putting Dragonic Gaius into the soul of your Dragonic Overlord. Soul Blasting, then having that retire power, depending on the card your opponent puts on the guard circle to use. It definitely helps for variety for the different grade 1s we have for options for the deck, with the last of them being the Lizard Soldier Rabia. With this one, on Vanguard or rear, when your opponent's rear guard is retired during your turn, this unit gets plus 5,000 until end of turn. So just like Belcosti, it's just a power booster. So as long as you have it set up in, the rear guard spots, it can either attack your opponent if it's strong enough, or just provide that extra boost for some of the other grade 2s you may have that just have that power base as well to rely on. And then for the grade 0, sticking with Lizard Runner Undo until we may get Conroe maybe one day. For the Sentinel starter, not Sentinel starter, the grade 0 starter in the deck, definitely be excited to see that as a starter option with just the generic draw and shield abilities. And for the trigger lineup, we're going with the 8 critical, so 4 embodiment of the Spear Tar, and 4 Rakshasha, just being the known triggers for Kai. And for the draw trigger, the 4 red gem Carbuncle as the generic draw. If you have the Wyvern Garbari Sentinels, you can replace them in this spot for those cards, and then just increase your numbers of the Rabias and also the Red Dive Gryphons for the additional number counts also. And lastly, the 4 heal triggers. I believe we'll also be getting some new heals in the pack, so can't wait to see what those look like as well, just to see the options compared to Genjo. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Definitely enjoy the budget decks. If you have any other requests for any of the budget deck profiles, definitely comment down below and I'll look into making them. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Qualia out.